One-foot-flipper.
Hi, Paige here, the 1 Foot Flipper. Today we're going to have some fun and go way off my usual eBay how-to videos. However, it's still going to be an eBay video. We're going to look at the top 20 most expensive American cars from the 1980s according to eBay. Now, I know what you're saying. Paige, why are you tanking your channel with these off-topic nonsense videos? Well, I was playing Magic the Gathering with Matthew Broderick the other day, no big deal, and as he soundly defeated me, he looked me right in the eye and said, "Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you might miss it." Alright, first let's lay down some ground rules. Each vehicle can only appear once on the list. This is needed, otherwise this is going to become a repetitive list of basically 4 or 5 cars just that show up again and again and again. If the vehicle in question was shown as relisted, was there any other reason for me to think it didn't really sell, then I didn't count it on the list. I also didn't count full custom cars, be they race cars, stereo cars, low riders, or something else. There were a lot of race cars I had to skip, but most of their base models still made it onto this list. And there was one really nice lowrider that I had to skip for the same reason. Because really, you can throw $40,000 worth of parts into anything and make it worth $20,000, and that's not really what we're looking for. We're also not going to be looking at trucks, vans, limousines, or the Jeep brand in general. You can just assume that the full-size and the compact truck from every American automaker made this list, as did every single thing sold under the Jeep brand from 1980 to 1989. Finally, we care about the automaker's name and not where the car was actually produced. So captive imports like Geos still count. Fords that are made in Canada still count. Do you think any Geos made this list? Post in the comments now before the video is over if you think Geos made the list. First, we're going to start with honorable mention. Honorable mention goes to K cars. While no actual K cars made it onto this list, I really felt the need to include them anyway. As the convertible, the turbo versions, the town and country, and really nice wagons keep bringing higher and higher prices, and they sometimes do creep into the price ranges that the stuff on this list is bringing. And I absolutely love these cars and would not mind owning another one at all. This particular example here sold for $3,000. I think it's well worth it. Note it sits a little lower in the back. They all did that. I don't know if they did that from the factory or they just started drooping immediately, but if I had one, I would probably just lower the front a little bit to match rather than raising the back up. Alright, let's go on. Counting down. Number 20, Cadillac Cimarron. This was the Chevy Cavalier to the stars. This is GM's horribly failed attempt at making a small luxury car to compete with BMW, which they did. They said, we don't actually want to design a new car, so let's just take one of our small cars. We've got Cavaliers or we've got Chevettes. We better not try to make it off the Chevette, so we'll try to make it off the Cavalier. So they took the Cavalier, doubled the price, gave it a nice interior, tried to pass it off as Cadillac. Didn't work very well. While this particular one is said to be a fully sorted car mechanically, and it's got the more desirable V6 and the 5-speed, which is more desirable now but would have been less desirable then, and it's said to come with a large number of spare parts, but this car also has clearly visible rust, and the driver's door looks like it's slightly off color to the rest of the car. Like it was a junkyard pull that was theoretically the same color code, but was painted months apart or on a different day or something, didn't actually match. Somehow this car amazingly still brought $4,945 with heavy bidding from multiple bidders. I think the buyer would have been better off buying the K car in the honorable mention section and using the extra $2,000 to keep that K car repaired for the next 10 years, but hey, getting the Cimarron was their choice. Number 19, 1989 Dodge Diplomat. The Diplomat was Chrysler's entry into the basic full-size V8 fleet and police and old lady market, but they simply were not as reliable as the competition was. This beautiful low-mileage example was the last year of the model, 65,000 on the odometer, and it seems to me that it was well worth the $53.25 it brought. Too bad there's just nothing exciting about this model of car. These often crop up as replica police cars, usually badged to match some 1980s TV show that used one of these on their fictional police force. For some reason, the Diplomats often showed up as police cars on TV, far more than the Crown Vics or the Fords did. Speaking of Fords, number 18, 1987 Ford Thunderbird, Hertz Edition. Well, they call it a Hertz Edition. It's not really a Hertz Edition. It was just a Hertz fleet order. This came factory with a 5.0 V8 engine, and rumor has it, all Ford Thunderbirds at the time came with a carton of cool cigarettes in the glove compartment. This was the favorite car of single uncles with mustaches everywhere. The 80s T-Bird is relatively inexpensive compared to its once cheaper cousin, the Mustang. These used to cost a lot more than Mustangs, but now the Mustangs cost a lot more than these do. This 65,000-mile Survivor basically still looks showroom fresh, and it sold for only $5,500. Not bad. Number 17, the 1984 Cadillac Seville. I'm not going to lie, I think this is the ugliest car on the list. They made the mistake of sticking some weird alien-looking rear end on this thing. Look at that. I'm going to zoom in on that. Look at that. It looks like the last few feet of the car are melting. The unfortunate new owner of this thing paid $5,995 for this 90,000-mile example. I mean, I guess it isn't that bad. I'll bet some 90,000-mile Kias sold for more than that in recent history. Let's check. Oh my goodness. A 133,000-mile Kia Soul recently sold on eBay for the exact same price as this classic Cadillac. I know which one of these cars is still going to be around in 10 years and which one won't. All right, let's move along. Number 16, 1986 Ford Crown Victoria. This model first came out in 1979 and was the first vehicle on Ford's Panther platform. Now, many of your car guys consider this to be the best automotive platform in history. When it came to durability and ease of repairs, mechanics love the Panther platform. And they were making Panther platform cars right up until 2012, when the last year the Crown Vic was sold export only to the Middle East because the platform no longer met U.S. safety standards, and they didn't want to tweak it one last time. So they discontinued it. And a lot of fleet buyers actually bought up the 2011s and 2010s and saved them in order to use them after their other cars wore off. So there's probably a bunch of ones still in plastic. Well, not that they came in plastic in the first place, but I wouldn't doubt if there are some 2011 Crown Vics literally in plastic somewhere waiting to be put into service after old ones are gone. Hey, the Mercury Marauder was a low production Panther platform performance car. It would have made this list, but the car is so rare that none sold during the time frame that this video researched. This particular car we're looking at here, 30,000-mile example of the desirable coupe version. And while tan on tan seems like a pretty boring paint scheme, that's actually very exciting for a Crown Vic. And this sold for $7,325. Hey, let's keep up with the Panther platform. 1989 Lincoln Town Car. This is a perfect 8,000-mile example of a very popular rear-drive luxury car. This sold for $10,000, which I think is a bargain if you're into that sort of thing. Now, if you buy any sort of super low mileage car like this, and you actually plan on daily driving it, then the first stop should be a mechanic to spend several $1,000s more to replace and inspect all those rubber parts and seals and everything under the hood, as those are often a real problem with cars like this that never really got driven. Number 14, 1986 Pontiac Fiero GT. Two cars in a row that each only have 8,000 miles on them. The Fiero, in my mind, was a bit of a failure. It was supposed to be some sort of practical compact, some sort of performance car at the same time, but it wasn't really all that great at either. Supposedly they handled well if you set them up right, but, you know, most people just drive. They don't go around tracks. This was probably the first wide-release rear-engine car since the Corvair in the 1960s, at least American car. But most Fieros ended up getting ripped up as donor cars for various body kits to make them look like Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and everything else under the sun. These cars do still have quite a following, and given that information, this is probably a bargain at $10,000. You might have to wait many years for another example this low of mileage to show back up, if one ever does again. Number 13, 1980 Chrysler Cordoba. This is an all-original, heavily optioned V8 Cordoba that was a special order from the dealership, and it only has 20,000 miles on it. It sold for just over $11,000 against an $11,900 asking price. This car is unique on the list, as it's the only car on the list that I just don't have any memories of. I mean, I remember that the car existed, but I have no specific memories relating to them. I don't remember ever any specific memory of ever seeing one, being in one, driving one, anybody I know owning one being in a movie, nothing. And I probably haven't seen one since the 1990s. Number 12, 1984 LTD Crown Victoria Station Wagon. Another Panther platform. These big Ford wagons were all over the road for decades, right up until they suddenly weren't. And then prices started skyrocketing on them. This rust-free 130,000 mile example sold for an $11,000 offer on an $11,995 asking price. This would have been a $4,000 car 5 years ago. I almost bought one of these 5 years ago for less than that, in better condition than this one. And this example also covers the Mercury Grand Marquis wagon. They were basically identical cars. They had identical drivetrain. They had identical sheet metal. They had the same wheels. They had nearly identical interiors. It wasn't like the GM clones that would change the shape of the car. Ford Mercury clones were basically the same exact car. All right, let's go to number 11, 1982 Buick Riviera. Now these big coupes were actually front-wheel drive, which is a rarity in large cars and in American cars in general at the time, but this had carried over. The very first Rivieras in the 1960s were front drive, and those things had massive engines, like big blocks. This only had a normal V8 engine, probably either a 5-liter or a 5.7-liter, something around that range. There was actually a convertible version of these available in very limited numbers, done by the American Sunroof Company, and I once had the pleasure of driving one of the convertible ones on a 600-mile road trip, and it was probably the smoothest highway driving car that I ever drove. It was better than my Mercedes. This particular one sold for $12,000, although the seller did include free shipping. Normally I rail against free shipping, but in the classic car market with uncommon cars like this, free shipping can actually work. You can know it's going to cost you $2,000, but that it is going to make that car sell. Because a lot of people, they're scared to travel to pick up a car like this. They are scared to try to arrange the shipping themselves. But oh boy, if it shows up at their house, they're buying it. Number 10. 1985 Cadillac Eldorado. This Cadillac was on the same front-wheel drive platform we just looked at with the Riviera. However, this one got a V8. Oh yeah, the Riviera was actually a V6. I'd go back and edit it, but I'm not going to. This example appears to be a nice survivor that either has 47 or 147,000 miles on it. From the they're claiming 47,000. From the photos of it, zooming in, it could be either way. It sold for $13,515. Number 9, 1984 Pontiac Parisienne station wagon. Did I pronounce that right? I don't think I did. This is a 64,000 mile example that has a very nice repaint, and it had the wheels upgraded fairly high end, but it's otherwise stock. These full-size wagons just keep going up in value every year. This one sold for just under $16,000 at auction. There were only 2 bids though. Number 8, 1984 El Camino Choo Choo Edition. This particular model had the arrow-looking front end that some of the other GM performance cars, the type, had, instead of the steel bumper that was normal on an El Camino at the time. This is a low-mileage example, only 29,000 miles, although they were super hard miles because this was a funeral flower car. That means a whole lot of driving 15 miles an hour and a whole lot of having things loaded in and out of the back of it. So it's got a lot of paint imperfections on it from that, and this sold for just over $16,000 at auction. The El Caminos with that arrow-looking front end always sell for way more than the bumper ones, even though I think the bumper ones look better. Number 7, 1988 Ford Mustang GT convertible. This red convertible with white interior is exactly what my mind goes to if I had to imagine a classic 1980s American car. This particular one was a stock example with some new parts. It's actually pretty hard to find a stock Mustang of this era, especially a V8 one, as they were very popular cars for performance tuning, as they were the lightest things out there that you could get from the factory that had a V8. I would love to own that car. Number 6, 1987 Chevrolet Corvette convertible. This version of the Corvette is called the C4, as it's the 4th generation of Corvette. The design of the C4 Corvette, in my mind, has aged so well that I don't think most people would look at that car and think that, oh yeah, that's a 40-year-old car. The styling, to me, still looks modern. This particular one only has 5,000 miles on it and sold for an $18,900 offer against a $19,900 list price. That is now very high for a C4 Corvette, but realize that it's $1,500 cheaper than a new Kia Soul with 0 options. Put both of them on the road today. Which one's going to be around in 25 years, this Corvette or the Kia Soul? I think the Corvette would be. I know it would be. Oh, wanted to note that I did use a third-party website to verify the actual sold prices on these cars, as many cars on eBay are sold as offers, and that I didn't count any classified ad listings because there's no way to know if those cars actually sold. Number 6, 1987 Camaro IROC Z. Oh, which was apparently missing the photo. I'll have to look that back up and get a photo of it. The IROC Z was the high-performance Camaro. This is a nice survivor with under 100,000 miles. I would personally have gone for the convertible version of this car instead, as I have driven these 80s Camaros, and the rear view out of these things is miserable despite the huge window. This one sold for the $17,990 asking price. Number 5, the 1987 Monte Carlo SS Aero Coupe. I actually sold a complete set of graphics for this one piece at a time over the last few years. Did quite well for it since I paid $1 for the kit. See that folded back window there? If you see that on any old GM vehicle, you can just assume that it is a money car that people will want. The SS Aero Coupe is not the only one that ever had that folded back window. They existed on a couple of other models. I can't remember which ones at the time. I think there were some Caprices that had them, for sure. The SS also marks this as the performance model and means that it had the big engine. This is a nice unrestored survivor, and it even had the T-tops, which adds quite a bit of value, as GM was pretty slow to make convertibles of their performance cars in the 80s, really just doing Corvettes and Camaros, while the G-bodies like this, there were no convertible versions available, at least not from the factory. Number 4, 1980 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am 6.6 liter. That's the big block. This isn't even my kind of car, but I cannot help but admire this thing anyway. This car generationally belongs to the 1970s, but it did continue into the beginning of the 1980s. This beautiful example has a huge engine, the snowflake wheels, beautiful Thunder Chicken on the hood, and it's had a large amount of mechanical and touch-up work done, but none of it's particularly custom, so this still completely counts. This sold for $21,000 at open auction with heavy bidding. And this entry is also representing all the lower spec Firebirds of this same body style on the list, of which there were many. Number 3, 1987 Oldsmobile 442. This was your top-of-the-line Oldsmobile, performance-wise, in the 1980s. This particular example has less than 100,000 miles on it. It's supposedly never seen winter, and it has the T-tops. Sold at open auction for $22,900. This is a GM G-body car. We've already looked at several more. There was at least one variant of the G-body in every GM brand. Many of those variants were performance-oriented like this. Even that El Camino is a G-body. Number 2, 1981 C3 Corvette. This is a late version of the third generation Corvette. Third generation and newer Corvettes have always been relative bargains on the used market because most of them were purchased by older buyers for whom they were second, third, or even fourth cars. They were babied their whole life and often have low mileage. My uncle, who's in his 70s, has a 70-something Corvette like this, a yellow one, and I think even today it's only got 40,000 miles on it, and he bought the thing brand new. This 22,000 mile mint condition example sold for $26,500, and that is in the same price range as a well-equipped 2-year-old Honda Civic. These get much, much cheaper if they actually have any miles or wear on them or any problems. I think I would personally rather have the C4 Corvette instead of the C3. The C3 styling is just a little bit too spaceman and over the top for me. All right, finally, going to number 1. Those of you who know about cars already would have guessed this. The 1987 Buick Grand National X. This counts for all versions of the Buick Regal. Otherwise, it would be on this list at several different trim levels. The X version in particular was the fastest American production car at the time. Oh, this one wasn't even an X. And it could beat most supercars in a straight line. However, it couldn't go around corners like a supercar can. Modern tuners have taken these cars way further than the original design. And unfortunately, you're likely never going to find a cheap Grand National. There are very few poor condition ones out there because every time anybody finds out about a poor condition one, a line of people with huge stacks of $100 bills quickly forms at the home or place of wherever this car exists, and the seller ends up selling the car, and the car ends up restored, or the seller ends up saying, "No, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to restore it someday," and the owner eventually passes away, and then his family sells the car. I say his because these cars almost exclusively were purchased by men. It's not a sexist thing. A large number of these were also saved in mint condition from new and have very low miles. This unrestored 32,000 mile original car sold at a $57,000 offer on a $69,500 listing price, and this is far from the nicest one I've ever seen. I'm pretty sure these have sold into the 6 figures. Hey, thanks for making it all the way to the end. If you want me to do more videos like that, then post that in the comments. If you want me to go back to general tips and about eBay and what sold videos, then post that. Hey, thanks, and I hope to see you again soon.
Forgive me, I don't know his actual name, but his YouTube name is onefootflipper.
So, now that it's just us, are there any specific eBay items you can think of that used to be sellable, but that us YouTube guys, or even better if it's a specific YouTuber, has just sent to zero value by showing them over and over again in their What Sold videos, like Tupperware lids, for example? If so, please post those items in the comments. I want to do a video on the top items that YouTubers have ruined.